Good evening or good morning for those of you who are joining us from a distance. I'm Mary Conley Eggert, founder of Global Waterworks, and thrilled to put the Lake County Lake Lovers in the hands of Janice Aull for tonight's presentation. Just before we do, I want to make sure that everyone has had the chance to register for our community, because we will continue this conversation in the community that has been set up for are connecting the world's water resources and experts and technologies together. And you can find the community through our Global Waterworks site, where we have invited all those who care about water, who are managing wastewater, who are interested in scarcity or flooding or contaminants. There are solutions to all of these challenges, and we're thrilled that technology is not a barrier, but in fact, your capabilities and your coming together is what the key is for our addressing water challenges. And we're very excited to have you here for this World Water Day presentation. And you can, many of you are members of Lake County Lake Lovers, which is hosting this event. And in the community, you can find resources. We feature what's the latest news, information on presentations we've given about how to prevent HABs, information on water quality and the details that the health department provides. And we also want you to know that you can find members and reasons for investing in water, because it does in fact bring peace, which is the theme of this year's World Water Day. And this feature is highlighted, telling you about the history of Global Waterworks and the resources that you have access to. And most importantly, steps that you can take to address the water crisis. One of those is joining in this week's Zoom so that you learn about the very way a single person can make a difference, as Janice Aull is doing, and she'll share details here in a moment. But there are 11 more ways to bring peace with water, including investing in our ministries for rainwater harvesting in Africa, and following the Stormwater Management Commission's guidelines for reducing nutrient pollution in your local water bodies. This information is in the community, as are resources about plans for communicating with students, and tips you can use to engage anyone in your community with restoring our wetlands or our waterways. Finally, I want to introduce Bill Cody, who's going to be moderating the Q&A once Janice finishes. And he is our co-chair for Lake County Lake Lovers, also the author of the award-winning comprehensive plan for Libertyville, where many of our lakes are located. So with no further ado, I'll just mention that Janice Aull and all of you in this program are in the community, so you can find each other and follow those people you want to stay in touch with, and also chat with them. If you have a question, you can reach Janice here. So there's no need to worry about having business cards or trying to track someone down. We all want to stay connected. And that's the reason for the Global Waterworks community. So I hope you will join in there after the call. Janice will be posting this presentation, and mark your calendars for next April 18th, when we will talk about lake water quality success stories. So I'll close out here, Janice. And did anyone have any questions before we begin?
Yes. I'm assuming Janice is going to tell me exactly where this is. I live in Lake Bluff and I have no idea where this is. So I obviously don't know the name of that particular body of water.
Yeah. So neighbors on Zoom right now, I'll take a quick picture before you you dig in here, Janice, and everyone give me a smile. We're set. And now, Janice, I'm going to turn it over to you, and just thank you so much. Our agenda is a 30-minute presentation by Janice with Q&A, and then updates or meeting announcements from the team. And we can also introduce ourselves. So thanks very much for sharing your knowledge, Janice.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to. It's always nice to have another opportunity to spread the word. And yes, for a small donation, I'll give you a personal tour of the preserve. So we will share where it's at. Um, so part of my background is I do leadership and employee development, and so Zoom is one of my main forms of communication, and I love chat. So I have my chat open, and I encourage you, please type in chat. Type to all participants. I will be constantly watching chat, and if you have a question, pop it in there. I'll answer it, or I'll put it off hold for another couple of slides, but feel free to communicate through chat because it just keeps us engaged, and I want to make sure you get what you need and your questions answered as we progress. But I do have an activity for all of you, and what I'd like you to do is in the chat box, how long have you lived in your current location? And so in the chat box, all participants, how long have you lived in your current location? I was born and raised in Lake County, Illinois, so I've been here my whole life, and I've been in this location for 43 years. So married 17. Let's get a couple more people. How long have you lived in your current location? If you have two places, like what's the most? Like pick that one location that you've been to that you've been at the longest. I know, Dr. Tata, you were born and raised in India, so then you go back to visit. So I have the 20 years, 4 years, 5. Excellent. Perfect. There's a reason why I'm asking you this, so play along with me. And the reason why I'm asking is because for our family, the Aull family, it was the Flossie Aull family, my husband's grandfather and grandmother, Grandma and Grandpa Flossie, they came to the Knollwood area in the early 1930s. They sold their store that they had down in downtown Chicago as a grocery store, ice cream shop, meat market. They sold that, and then they purchased 9 acres in Knollwood or unincorporated Lake Bluff. And back then, they were the first house in the area. And so here's an aerial shot of 1939. But Grandpa Flossie then went and built the homestead. And what the fun story about that is back when the Depression first started, the carpenters and people that were really struggling, Grandma and Grandpa Flossie would give them either store credit, give them free food, and help people out. So when it came time to build the home, those folks that they helped came out to help build the house. So this house was built with love because it was built for all the people that they helped during the Depression. And the bricks actually are Chicago manufactured bricks, and the train made a stop in Knollwood to stop down the street so they could take the bricks off and build the house. And so that's the home that my husband and I currently live in is this house right here. And my husband will be working on the house, and he found Grandpa Flossie's cigar butt and find some fun things. But what the Flossie family did is they made it into like a little gentleman's farm, and some of these Grandpa Flossie planted a lot of trees, a lot of fruit trees, because the Italians like to have their fruit trees. A lot of those trees are still standing today. They had a chicken coop, and they would sell. Grandpa Flossie would sell eggs on Waukegan Road, which is now a 4-lane paved busy highway, and he would sell eggs on Waukegan Road when it was just a little 2-lane, probably barely paved road. So we have pictures of way back when, before anyone was there. So we're going to fast forward to 1995 because my husband and I moved in here in 1980s, and then we started realizing that nature doesn't have a place to live, right? The birds, the animals, and the little critters. So what can we do to help provide habitat for the wildlife? So I want to quiz all of you. What does wildlife need to survive? So if you want to attract birds and animals to your backyard, what are 4 things that you need to make sure you provide for them? And you can either take your phone off mute or in the chat box. What are the 4 things that animals need to survive? You want to attract wildlife to your yard. You need to provide these 4 things. Food, shelter, water. Yes. And the 4th one is a place for them to raise their young. And so in 1995, my husband and I took that mission on to say, okay, let's provide food, shelter, water, and a place for wildlife to raise their young. So for example, brush piles, the old drainage tubes, drainage ditch tiles. And we started creating and landscaping our property, which we call Nature's Haven for wildlife. And it's amazing. You build it and they will come. So we literally burned the front yard. So the first year we just set the yard on fire and burned all the grass. I would do it a little bit differently now that I know what to do, what not to do. But then we were able to create this wonderful habitat for wildlife. And what's fun is you never know what's going to show up. So we've had, after a snow, it'd be fun to go out there to see what type of prints we've had throughout the years. We've had gray fox and red fox raise their babies underneath their old chicken coop. And we'll see all types of prints that are fun. And then the plant life. And I'm going to really put a plug in for not only water, but for bugs, because bugs are necessary. People freak out, oh, bugs, but we need to have bugs because bugs feed the animals, they feed the birds. And so when you have the plants, then the bugs come, and then when the bugs come, the birds come, and you create this wonderful habitat. So here's our front yard now. So you saw the front yard uh, just a couple, 2 slides ago, and here it is now. And it's just if you walk through there during the summer, and it's just the lightning bugs. The lightning bugs in the evening are just incredible during the summer. We also get some fun things. The milkweed brings us not only the monarchs, but the hummingbird hawk moth. And every year we can always count on seeing a couple of those. And then we have our screech owl. So every winter, screech owl will come and we had 2 of them this year. They're both screech owls, but one's a red version and then the gray. They're both the same, but the colors will change. They stay in the box for the winter time and then they go away. And then we have bat boxes. And it took us a few years to track bats, but you can see once we got the bats, we also got a lot of bat guano, which is good because that is great fertilizer. And we recently put up another bat box because this one we counted 50 bats. We put another one up because it will hold 144 bats. So bats are great. They're again, it's that circle of life eating the insects. And then the fun insects. And does anyone know what's going to be happening in Lake County this year?
Billion cicadas or so?
Yes, the cicadas are coming out. So the giant 17-year cicadas are coming out. So that's going to be, if you live in the North Shore, we'll be hearing those. We don't get them in our area, but we also get a wide variety of other insects that come by because they've revealed that they will come. But then as we were living in the property, we started to notice that water, we started to get like more and more water. Well, what we realized was, what was once that first aerial map I showed you in 1939, there was no houses. Well, what happens is all the stormwater runs east off of Waukegan Road down towards our property. And because we have all these houses, what people do naturally is people just don't know, right? They build a house. Oh, we have to get rid of the rainwater, put it in a ditch and send it downstream. And so what was happening is we were getting all this major flooding because the stormwater ditches were never built properly. There was drainage tiles that were installed and never maintained. Because back then people just didn't know about proper stormwater management and they didn't know about how to properly build ditches. And we live in Lake County. So where we live in Illinois, it's northern Illinois, it's called Lake County for a reason, because if you look at old aerial pictures, hundreds and hundreds of lakes, lots and lots of wetlands. And what we realized was, yes, we have wetlands that right behind our property. Here's our nature preserve. So I think, Ann, you wanted to know where our nature preserve is at. And here's the old family homestead. Here's where we're at right now. And so what we realized was we're getting all this flooding. And Lake County Stormwater Management put this statistic out a couple of years ago. And we've lost like over 60% of our wetlands in Lake County over the years. But what they've done is they've identified that there's almost like 15,000 acres that can be restored if people like us just took our, the little piece of property that we have or worked with the community just to restore that wetland and to properly manage that stormwater mitigation, we could restore some of that wetlands. Lake County this past in February of this year announced that last year they added 55 acres of wetland. So our Lake County Stormwater Management is an awesome team, and they're actually doing something to try and restore the wetlands versus get rid of them. But we all live downstream. We all live in a watershed, and where we live in the North Branch Chicago River watershed. And so we were like, what can we do to help with what we have to try and mitigate this water? And we really started to realize we were having issues in like 2010, in the spring and early late winter, our yard would flood, and our front yard would get 12 inches of water. We just had 12 inches of water a couple weeks ago. You go walk in our front yard with 12 inches of water. We never ever had a flooding issue, but because we're having wetter springs, hotter summers, and milder winters, and we're getting this climate change, and more people are sending their water downstream, from their house to our house, we're just getting more and more water. And so we're like, what can we do to help protect the animals? We have crayfish, we have frogs, we have ducks that stop by, but then also mitigate the water in a friendly way. We had our Lake County building and zoning person come out and we're like, we want to keep the water. What can we do to make sure we keep the water, but keep it healthy, right? We want to make sure we have a healthy habitat. And the representative was like, I've never had a resident that wanted to keep water on their property. He's used to dealing with people that want to send it downstream to somebody else. And yes, this is a crayfish turret. So what in our area, we have the prairie crayfish. It spends most of its time underground in the water because the water table is probably 6 to 7 inches below the surface, below the grass. And they just tunnel their way around and they'll pop up and make these turrets. So this is our side yard and this is our backyard. But then what we also noticed is on the ditch that's next to our property, because this used to be our property back in the early 30s. This is what Grandpa Flossie had, but then it got sold. They built houses. They did not build proper stormwater drainage. And so over the years, the ditch would just flood, and it would actually flood where this whole street on the left-hand side would just get covered with water, and cars would get stuck in the ditch because they wouldn't see where the road was, and they would, drive into the ditch. And then at the far east end, it would flood as well. And it was just poorly designed. It wasn't maintained, and it was eroding and eroding. And like right out along here, you could see the erosion. This was, and it was actually eroding into our property, and it started eroding onto the road. And here's the flooding that would take place. And and this was just if we only got like a half an inch of rain. So it wasn't that we were getting substantial amounts, just like half an inch of rain. And here's the ditch. And we've been in this property, I've been living here for 43 years, and this has been an issue for probably 30 years. And for 30 years, every once in a while, I'd say something, we're unincorporated Lake Bluff, I'd say something to the township, we have to fix this. And of course, oh yeah, we don't have the money, we can't do it. And I'm like, there's grant money, we could get grant money. Oh, we need someone to write the grant. No one's willing to write the grant. And I would just like let it go. And then finally, last year, I'm like, we have to do something because it's not only impacting our property, it's starting to impact the street. So I reached out, I contacted Lake County Stormwater Management, I contacted my local officials and said, what can we do? And they're like, there's grant money and you could write a grant. I've never written a grant in my life. I had no idea how to do this. My English teacher would be very proud to know that I actually wrote and secured a grant because this is not my area of expertise. And we were able to secure a grant from Lake County. I secured a grant from Lake County Stormwater Management on behalf of Shields Township. So I wrote it on behalf of our government, our local government. And I just went to the supervisor and said, sign on the dotted line. I'm going to get us a grant. And he was like, okay. I don't think he believed it would come through. And then we got it. And so this was in August. The construction took place in August of 23. So the grant funding came from Lake County Stormwater Management Commission. And the construction was done by Hay and Associates, the engineering firm, and then McGinty Brothers actually did the actual construction, and they were just wonderful to work with. I want to highlight, and this goes to Mary's point about just communicating and community, people coming together. In the lower right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that little sign that says Taming Our Stormwater, and it has a QR code. That QR code will take you to our website, and then on our website, we posted what the project was, what we were doing, why we were doing it, just to keep people informed. That first day that we put that sign out, we had 1,000 hits. Because what happened was people are driving by. What are they doing? Right? Everybody's curious. What are they doing? They got their phone out, they hit the QR code, and then they forward it and shared it with their friends. So I highly recommend just that anytime you could take an opportunity to educate people, leverage technology, it really pays off. So McGinty Brothers did the heavy lifting. They regraded the whole ditch. They put in what's called check dams. So here they had to take stuff out, regrade it. And then they put in these check dams, which is just big boulders to help flow the water down. They built a swale, so the water will come in, so when we have the significant rains, it spreads out, has a chance to soak down into the ground. And then and what's really neat is this blanket that you see here, it's filled with native seeds and it's biodegradable because wildlife is really important to us. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to the what, the crayfish? Are the snakes going to get stuck in it? And I was really, really nervous about that. But I came out the next day, and the crayfish actually like cut their way and found their way out of the actual thing. So the grant, we received a $23,000 grant, and the whole project was about $34,000. But part of that grant was to do in-kind services. So I organized the community and organized people to come together, and we did about 270 hours of volunteer time. And so because we were able to do that, get all those volunteers to come out and help, we were able to spend less money on the government and, from the township side than what we actually got. So the township only had to spend like $16,000 because the rest of the money came from in-kind services with all the volunteers getting out there and working it. And yes, there is going to be maintenance. So there is a maintenance plan. What we'll do is just every year, like twice a year, just make sure we are picking up throughout the year, pick up any garbage or debris that might come in there. And then twice a year, just make sure the non-native plants are not taking over and give the native plants a chance. So it's a lot less maintenance versus, because it used to be grass, right? So you have to do that once a week, cut the grass, and we're not going to do that because the native plants will come in and also help our pollinators. Good questions. Which, speaking of, so we had the grant, we didn't have enough money to buy plants through the grant. So we had donations, and so people either donated funds or they donated plants, and we were able to install about 370 plants. People donated trees, and they donated shrubbery, and we were planted 3 white oak trees, which love to have their feet wet. And if you don't know, oaks are a keystone species. That's a plant you should definitely want to plant in your yard because oak trees are really important to the northern Illinois area. And then we planted a number of sedges in the ditch. So we're looking forward, this was in the August, right? Early September, late August. So we're looking forward to see what comes up this spring. Because right now, this ditch has been underwater all winter long. So we're looking forward to see what happens. And native plants are crucial to, and this, Dr. Todd, I wanted to ask you with your lake, native plants are crucial to wetlands or to lakes because native plants have really long root systems. And so what they do is they not only will help filter the water and absorb any like they help filter and clean the water, but they also then will absorb that water and they loosen up the soil so the water has an opportunity to percolate back into the ground. And that's the education piece that we're trying to communicate with the community is capture your raindrops where they fall. Don't just send your raindrops downstream to somebody else. Capture your raindrops in your yard. Create a little tiny rain garden. Put some native plants in. So when it rains, the long roots of those native plants will loosen up the soil, give the rainwater a chance to soak in, and then you're not going to be sending it downstream to somebody else. And part of the grant included that we do some additional education. So I got the kids involved at the local school, and they put up this fencing. So I will confess, math is not my strong suit. So what I did was I gave the students the stakes and the ropes, and I said, okay, you have all this area. You have to figure out how far to put the stakes and how much area you have to use. So the teacher and the kids did the math about, put the stakes every 5 feet, and because we have 200 feet, they figured all that out. And Ann, I'll answer your question about resources. So the kids had a lot of fun because when they were out here, they were finding crayfish turns. So they were seeing the crayfish turns, and so we had an opportunity to educate them about the crayfish turns. And then we also put up some educational signs, and there again, that QR code really helps. So this is at the West School in Knollwood, which is off of Waukegan Road.
Yeah, they had at school.
It's the Safe Haven. It's the special needs school, Safe Haven school.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that was closed. Okay.
Yeah. The township offices
Okay,
are there.
realize.
Yeah, the township offices are there. Then they have the Safe Haven school.
Oh, even better. That was great to put those kids to work.
Yeah, they're wonderful. I mean, yeah, we just had so much because they're so excited, right? So and then we didn't have time to do it this fall because of the weather change. So in the spring, they have a pollinator garden at the school.
Oh, great.
So the kids are going to go and take plants from their pollinator garden, and then they're going to bring them down and plant them in here. So that's our springtime project.
That's
that we're
great.
Work on. Yeah, we're really getting them involved. And so here's it works. there again, you build it, it will work. And here was our first significant rain. You could see this is one swale here, and here's a second swale. This swale on the right is where that car is up there. The oak trees are right in this swale in the middle, and they're going to get wet, but they like their feet wet. And the water really gets rushing. I've posted a couple of videos on our YouTube page of just like the water coming over the check dam. We've had like 11,000 views of just water going over some rocks, but it is really soothing. So I will admit to that. And then here's another picture of it just, early. It looks completely different now. It's amazing how fast nature just takes over. So that was a success. And we're like, this is really cool. But in the meantime, this was all 2023, but in late 20, yeah, this was 2023, late 2021, and the deal was finalized in January 2022. I was taking a walk around the neighborhood and I noticed that there was some property for sale, 6 lots, and there's a pond on the lot. And I'm like, great, here we go again, right? Take these empty lots, put houses on it, and send the water downstream. And this one has actual pond on it. And come back, talk to the husband. We're all depressed, and we started looking at the price, and we realized that what I thought was pricing per lot was actually priced for all 6 lots. And we were both like, wow. And so we realized, you know what, we don't take vacations. We don't have a second home. So we're like, if we pool our money together, we could at least buy the property and save it. It was fun because when we called the real estate agent, he's like, the water, there's the land's underwater. And we're like, yeah. And he goes, and you can't build on it. We're like, yeah, that's what we wanted. And the real estate agent's like, sign on the line, right? Because he was so glad to get rid of this unwanted property. So what we did was we bought about 2.25 acres down the street from us. Here it's at the corner of Safford and Northern. Right now it's a private preserve because it's only 2 acres. There's a lot of dead trees on it. It's not real safe to have people walking in there. And it's a nature preserve. We bought this property for wildlife. It's not for people. We have Lake County Forest Preserve has wonderful forest preserves. Lake Bluff Open Lands has wonderful preserves for people. And our focus is to create a habitat for nature. So right now it's private. However, we have a dream and we would love to acquire the 8.25 acres to the east of us. And if we're able to acquire, because this is all wetland, so this green signifies that's wetland. This land has never been developed on the right-hand side of our preserve, never been developed, has a lot of remnant prairie plants. Matter of fact, it's a perfect habitat for the prairie fringe orchid and the Massasauga rattler, which are both endangered species in Lake County. And it also has an oak grove on it, which my husband had a treehouse in it when he was a little boy, and we went and actually found remnants of the treehouse in an old oak tree. So back when he was a little kid, he would come and visit. So if we are able to acquire these 8.25 acres, then we'd probably put a trail on that. But right now we're keeping it as a private preserve. And so, like I said, we all live downstream. We're all part of a watershed, and we're all part of the north branch of the Chicago River watershed. And so here's an aerial shot of our nature preserve, and I'm so excited. It's the shape of a heart. Aw, so we were really, and we didn't plan that, right? It's like, oh, there's our pond, and it's the shape of a heart. And then we named it the Aull Nature Preserve. And a fun fact about that is Gary's mother was a art and music teacher for the inner city of Chicago back in the 30s to the 50s. Right, yeah, my 30s to late 40s to 50s, 60s. So she taught art and music to the kids in the inner city and to the kids that just never had an opportunity to go to college and do things. And so she drew these turtles probably in the 60s. These turtles were drawn. When we were going through her artwork and sharing her artwork with friends last year, we came across these turtles and we're like, oh my gosh, these would be a perfect logo for our nature preserve. And so we took her turtles, and then her granddaughter, who is a professional photographer, she has all mine photography. She does professional photography. She went and drew the dragonfly and the frogs on top of the turtles. So she was honored to be able to work with her grandmother's artwork, and this is a family logo. So we're really proud to have that. So we now are working on restoring our wetland. It's really degraded. It has a lot of non-native plants on it. The water quality probably is not the best because the storm water comes in from the community. But the exciting news is we have 6 board members, and 4 of them are under the age of 30. And these young people, they have degrees in ecology, restoration, aquatics, they focus on amphibians. And so they're excited to get out and actually apply what they learned. And I'm like, go. If you want to go test the water, look for salamanders, go apply everything that you learned because it's going to help us learn. So I just talked to a board member today and she's like, can we get a microscope? Can we look for, this? I'm like, yes. I said, we'll figure this out. So we got the young people and we're going to start. We already cleared a lot of the buckthorn. The first thing we had to do was get rid of the trash. And we took out 2 carloads of trash. It was just amazing how people just could be so negligent with just throwing stuff out there. And then last February, and then this year we took out buckthorn, my husband. So this was all choked with buckthorn. We have a lot of nanny berries. We're trying to figure out what native plants are currently there. So we're working on that. And then we're just really getting to know the property. And this year we did. I'm a big gardener, and I don't know about if there's any other gardeners, but when you start seeing all these plant sales, you just can't say no, right? And now that we have like 2 acres and then we have my own property. So yesterday I placed this huge plant order for sedges because sedges are excellent for cleaning up the water. Here are some native sedges that are in there. So I placed this huge plant order. So we have 970 plants coming in May and June that we're going to have to plant. But what we're focusing on is to get this restored and then put it in some sort of long-term conservancy so it will never, ever be developed. But that's our challenge is like, okay, who's going to take this over when we're gone? And because a lot of the places that will take that over also want a huge donation to be able to maintain that over the years. So we're working on that. And we have 5 turtles. So we have 5 turtles. We have a muskrat house, snake, and we have garter snakes and 1 woodcock. I saw a woodcock last year and a woodcock this year. And so to answer your question, and we have coyotes, we have foxes, but we also have coyotes.
There are a lot of coyotes.
So here's what I was talking about as far as like, here's our property in green. Here's the 8.25 acres that we want to acquire. And then to the north of us, our neighbors to the north, they want to put their land into long-term conservancy as well, and they want to restore it for wildlife. So I'm currently working with them to what can we do to restore it, put it in long-term conservancy so it will always, maintain a habitat. So that's our dream, but to educate people, just capture your raindrops where they fall. Don't send your water downstream, capture your raindrops where they fall. But to answer the question on resources, here are some great resources. Native Restoration Services is right over in Lake Bluff, and they do landscape design and do that. Yes, the Robinsons are a neighbor. Yes, Mary Robinson, and I just saw Mary today, so I always go to Mary's house. And Mary is 95 years old. If you go to our website, our preserve. So Mary Robinson's house was on this property here.
Yes.
And then this was pasture. This was a pasture.
Yes.
She had an Appaloosa horse that had a colt, and in 1962, her colt fell into the mud and got stuck. And there's a newspaper article, and I posted it on our website. So she jumped in the mud and held her colt's head above the water and called for help. And then the local fire department and people came and helped pull the colt out of the mud and save the colt's life. So that was in 1962. So I have a picture of her holding the article, and it's on our website. But she is 95 years old. She gets out and walks every day. And so I will take her pictures and show her pictures of the preserve. So she's happy to hear that we're making this and keeping it for nature. But yeah, Mary Robinson.
So her granddaughter, Chrissy Robinson, is my daughter's best friend.
Oh my gosh,
they grew up together. They grew up together.
Small world.
And of course, Chrissy's married in Minnesota. So we are super close to the Robinsons. So that's what I was thinking the whole time. Are you a neighbor? I was looking at that map and said, she must be by the Robinsons. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we'll have to talk separately. Oh my goodness. My daughter grew up there. Yeah, running around those open lands.
And probably also riding the horses that they had.
Yes.
Too, they had horses.
Yes, she did. Yeah, they kind of adopted her when she was in 3rd grade. I was working so much. Yep.
And this is Route 41.
Yep.
Right here. So, yep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And so
Okay,
here
so
are
hold
the
on, I'm taking
resources.
a picture.
And another resource that it's not on here, and so Anne, if you want to send me an email,
Yeah,
Dave Eubanks, Eurbank. Dave also has his own landscape design and can help you as well. So Wisconsin wetlands, you know, even if you're in India, like I would highly recommend you go to their website. Wisconsin Wetlands Association is a fabulous resource, and they have this wonderful book called My Healthy Wetland, and it's $10, and it's like a wonderful user guide for people like me that have like, okay, I bought a wetland, what do we do? And they just really walk you through on how to get to know your wetland, how to take care of the water, you know, understanding watersheds, and the $10 is like really, it's just a wonderful investment. And then they have cafes that you could do online. It's just a great. I'll put a link on our Lake County Lake Lovers site. And like, and as Mary said, it's everyone can make a difference. And if everyone captured their raindrops where they fell, so like here, everyone took their ditch and just planted it with native plants, you're not going to be sending as much stormwater downstream, which is going to help alleviate the dirty stormwater that's probably ending up somewhere where there's a lot of non-natives, and it's just, you know, being a health hazard because it's being used wisely. And my final story on this is I we have our we bought my brother-in-law's house. His neighbor, his yard would flood all the time. He has actually two sump pumps for his house because his house is actually built on a wetland. So he has two sump pumps. So and his yard floods, so he's constantly using the sump pumps. He's a green grass guy, right? Everything has to be green grass, no plants, just grass. And then I'm out there planting my ditch with native plants and sedges. And so he would come, and we respectfully agree to disagree, right? Because what are you planting the weeds for? Blah, blah, blah. So we just joke around and have fun with it. And I said, I'm planting these native plants so your yard won't flood as much because it's going to help stop the rainwater, absorb it. That's not going to work. You don't know what you're doing. I'm like, trust me. So last fall, I said, so Dave, did you have a lot of water in your front yard this year? You know, did you have a lot of flooding? He's like, my yard didn't flood that much. I'm like, see, it works. So I have convinced him, and he is now working with a contractor to plant some native plants in his yard. So it's all about educating people and just letting them see the impact that it has. So with that, we will open it up for questions.
Well, first of all, Mary, this is Bill Cody, and what a wonderful little Walden pond that you had developed over there. And it's spectacular what you've been able to do with that property over the years that you've owned it and having it stay in your family.
Yes.
You know, being a resident of Lake County, I've driven by there all the time, and I'm just really quite happy to see what you've done with it. I have a question. I'll start out the questions about that 8 acres.
Uh-huh.
Being that it's undeveloped, is it under private ownership, public ownership because it's close to the highway?
Yes. So over the years, it's still private. The person that owns it right now is Ernie Samirsky. He owns the Porsche Audi dealer on Route 41 in Highland Park. So if anyone knows him, put a word out. And this property has it's like this whole corner is designated wetland. And so I believe, and I don't know for a fact, but given that Ernie owns a car dealer, we were assuming that he wanted to put some sort of car dealership on here. But he had two issues. A lot of it is wetland, so the actual buildable footprint is really small. And then the Illinois Department of Transportation would not allow access. He could only get access to and from the site with this. If you're going south on Route 41, people going north would not have been able to get onto the site. So I think from a financial perspective, it makes sense to develop it because he really couldn't, there wasn't much developed. So it's just been laying dormant all these years.
Do you know what it's zoned?
It's right now it's zone commercial. So zone
Okay.
commercial, and so this is another thing. It's zone commercial, and he's paying $24,000 a year in taxes, and that's where like even if he donated it to us, because we'd love to have donated to the nonprofit because we established our property as a nonprofit. We'd love to have them donate it to nonprofit, but it takes 2 years to get tax exempt from a property tax perspective. We don't have $48,000, to cover the taxes until we're able to get it as a nonprofit, to get it tax exempt. So Paul, that answers your question. Is we the purchase price, I guess you could look it up online. It was like 89,000 for the 6 lots, and then we were for the 2.25 acres, and we were able to get it tax exempt because it was never developed. It never had a house, no foundations, and so it's never been developed. So we're able to get the property tax exempt.
I just quick question on your own property. Do you have well water or city water?
Both. One
Okay.
house has well, and we have 2 houses on our property, and one house has well, one house has city.
Okay. So I have a friend that's got 22 acres in Lake Bluff.
Nice.
Yeah, well, we'll talk offline about it. It's kind of a private thing. Mary knows who I'm talking about. My significant other, actually, but it'd be interesting to talk to you about some ideas for that particular property or some of that property.
Yes, yes.
He's also got his parents on most of the acreage, but so challenge is getting agreement on anything, but
Yes.
maybe one could start small. So that's why it's so intriguing how you did this kind of on a piecemeal
Yes.
basis. In your case, as properties became available, in their case, it's like, well, maybe we could just do something small and grow from there.
Well,
so this is great.
Yeah, and that's when I work with people, because people, when I first started this in 1995, I did it the wrong way, where I just try to make all our property native. And so now what I coach people is like, just start small, take a little section like here, right? Like just take your ditch, just take a little piece of property, start there, and then make it bigger, and make slow changes. Like, don't bag your leaves, put your leaves under, put them underneath the tree, don't even mulch them.
His mother grew up on a farm, so she's pretty good. There's sort of a separate issue, but anyway, he's got a couple of acres, and I think it'd be very interesting to I just have a third of an acre that I want to clean up, but I think he's also pretty open to ideas for improving the land like this.
But a third of an acre is a lot. I'm like, you could do a lot. I mean, look at this is just one little
Oh,
ditch,
no, I know.
right?
I
It's
mean,
like,
yeah. So I'll talk to you offline so we don't waste
Okay.
everybody's time, particularly since you know the Robinsons.
Yes.
You can tell Mary Robinson I said hi, or Mary, what's her last name? It's not
No, it's
Robinson.
Robinson. Yeah,
It
Mary
is.
Robinson.
Oh, that's right. Because
Yeah.
Dan Robinson. Okay.
Yeah. We'll tell her.
Yeah.
What other questions?
Say Claire's mom said hi.
I will do that.
It's fascinating.
And
I have
Bill,
a question. Oh, just
go ahead.
The idea of the water stories group and recreating sort of the soil sponge, because you mentioned insects and microbes. Did you add any enzymes? Did you add anything to sort of create more of a fertile environment, or to get rid of any toxins? Do any assessments?
So on our home property at Nature's Haven, no. On the wetland, we will be doing that. So I just spoke to a board member today who is into aquatics, and I said, go measure the water. So she got all excited. So we will go measure the water. What we did is we got rid of the buckthorn this past February that feeds into the creek. There's like 2 drainage ditches that come into the pond. We got rid of all the non-native. We cut down the non-natives that are in that, and we're going to plant sedges in there. So my first thing is, let's try and filter that water before it gets to the pond. And so that's what we're going to do, is just put the sedges in there. But we are also going to test the water. But knowing that, if we have turtles, that's a good sign, because if you have amphibians and turtles, and we also have chorus frogs. So amphibians are your first indicator of a polluted environment, because they breathe through their skin. So we feel confident, since we have the amphibians, that the water should be, maybe not real good, but at least okay for them to survive.
Janice, how did you go about your buckthorn eradication, and what have you done in order to prevent it coming back?
So a couple things. If it's small enough, I will pull it up by hand. So I've learned buckthorn has a really shallow root. So if it's like up 3 feet or under, I just take a shovel and get it underneath the roots and just yank it out, and do that in the dormant season. So really early spring and late fall. We did have to resort to cutting and treating. So I did hire a woods to wetland. This is the W2W woods to wetland to come out and actually cut and treat. However, I'm trying an experiment because I was reading everything I'm reading talks about how buckthorn doesn't do well if you burn, like burning helps keep buckthorn under control. So I'm going to do an experiment where we're going to burn the stumps of the buckthorn that we cut to see if we could eradicate it that way, because I mean, because people that are doing restoration work are doing restoration work on like thousands and hundreds of acres. We're only doing 2 acres. And so I'm like, if I could come up with a new way of getting rid of buckthorn without using chemicals, who knows? So ask me in a year and a half how that goes, because that's our experiment. I got a flamethrower hooked up to a 10-gallon propane tank, and I'm just going to go and blast every one of those stumps and see what happens.
Sounds
And
like fun.
yeah, that could be my presentation for next year.
Yeah. Is there any
Janice,
other questions from anybody who've
yeah,
been participating today? Yes.
Janice, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. You walk really the talks. I
Thank
heard a
you.
lot of people talking about a lot of different things, but it's very heartening for me. It's already World Water Day here in India. So to start my day with your excellent
Oh,
presentation, exciting for me.
thank
Then
you.
I can tell the people, say, hey, have you heard? I'm going to give a talk again later in the municipal corporation here in the greater, this is a coastal city that I'm going to be there. It's wonderful, really, really. It's very enthusiastic for me because what I'm going to say for the students, again, walk the talk. That will be my presentation. Because a lot of people talk these days, but what they do, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for that. I have a question about I think I heard you saw a lot of bats on your property,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Some people concerned about the bats, the viruses and stuff like that.
So bats, uh, it's in any situation, if you ever see a sick animal, you should never approach it. But bats and possums get a bad rap. They're not a bad reputation. They're not the number of cases where there's rabies is so low. I think we had 1 case last year in Lake County. So it's that common sense, right? Now, what we have to worry about is the bats are dying of a disease called white nose syndrome. And what's happening is they're getting this virus that's highly contagious to the bats, and it's killing out whole colonies of bats. And so it's really humans having negative impacts on the wildlife versus the wildlife having negative impacts on the humans.
What do you do to eradicate that problem with the bats? I mean, how do they treat it?
I don't know where the scientists are at with that, because they've been working on it. I think they have been testing some sort of
Maybe
something
some
to help them.
pesticides or something, there's
Yeah,
something that's probably
yeah.
poisoning them, like us, yeah.
Yeah, and I know they've made progress, but I don't know where the solutions are at with all that. So, but to that point though, it's promoting your native pollinators, because native plants, native animals, they're able to rebound when there's big, like we have a really cold winter, a really hot winter, mild winter. They're able to rebound better versus to have something that's been introduced. And so it's really supporting your native pollinators and making sure that they have what they need, because it's that whole circle of life and just providing that habitat. So we have a lot of bugs, but because we have a lot of bugs, we have a lot of birds. And because we got the birds, we got I just posted a video on the YouTube page tonight before the call. Cooper's hawk was out here hunting the birds, right? So we got the fox. Every night the fox walks by our property. So it's that
Do you
circle
think
of
you'll
life.
have any sandhill cranes nesting?
Oh no, we don't have enough water.
No water?
But
Okay.
they're at
Yeah.
Middle Fork.
Yeah, they're at
You
Middle
can always
Fork.
see them at Middle Fork.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they have Rollins Savannah in Grays Lake. So the sandhill cranes have made a wonderful rebound because people, to Dr. Tada's point, people that started doing something and making a difference. And so the sandhill crane population has really done really well. And they are nesting,
So-
and the same with the bald eagle.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
in fact, Mary said that
Yeah.
the Libertyville had 5 bald eagles at Butler Lake.
Shock, yeah, it's wild.
6. Well, we're going up.
But Butler Lake isn't that clean, is it?
Not yet. They're working on it.
Soon.
Well, if
Tonight,
there
shall
isn't
we
any
say.
more questions, I'm going to hand it back over to Mary. Last chance. If anybody has a question for Janice, thank you very much. What a wonderful
Very-
presentation. I'm glad this is getting recorded because I know my wife is going to like
Oh,
watching
excellent.
this. So thank you. Thank you very,
Welcome.
very much.